If we listen to music and we start tapping our feet or our hands, we will discover the pulse of it. For example, tan, ta, 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 ta. Ta 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 tan 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 ta ta tan tan, and so on. Now that pause, every single tap, the distance between one beat to the other is always the same, but some of the beats sound, at least from the psychological point of view, a bit louder than the rest. Ta 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 tan 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 tan. Doesn't mean that we have to express it all the time when we play, but that is going to help us to follow the metric of the music. In this case, we need to find out is every 5 times, is every 5 beats, every 6 beats, every 8 beats, every how many beats? Well, we count. Tan 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 tan. We just do many dots, and we go trying to follow it. Pam 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 pam. So we go. I'm just going to make some more dots, and we try to find where those at least psychological stresses are falling on. Tan. Oh, I'm just gonna mark it. Tan 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 tan, and so on. Now, if you look at this, you can say 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1. That's good. We found a pattern. This is because this music is written in what we call in a time signature a 4 by something. Now this something, it depends on what you choose, but for example I choose as a unit quarter notes. This is not actually the actual melody of a song. It's just here marking what in every single bar I had to have the equivalent of. So this doesn't mean that I had to play or compose a melody with ta 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 ta. No, I'm just going to take and do what we were doing before. It's just splitting the notes and replacing them by for example 2 8 notes, or putting a dot and converting this in something else. So I need to have the equivalent, always the equivalent of 4 quarter notes. Yeah, because I choose the quarter note as a unit. If I choose the quarter note as a unit, I need to put a 4 here, and what we have here is a 4 by 4. I could use as a unit, for example, a half note. This is less usual. Occasionally you do it, but it's not common to have, for example, a 4 by 2. But I could have something like a 2 by 2. That would mean that I'm going to have in every bar 2 halves, because this is the symbol of a half. 2, 1, 2 halves, which is number 2. So this is telling me how many, and this tells me what. 2 represents the half, 4 represents the quarter note. And this is gonna sound ta, tam, 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 and that will be the pulse. As we say, we're here representing the pulse of a music, not the actual rhythm. Suppose I have a melody, and that will be ta 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 ta. Okay, let's try and see if we can fit the stress every 4 beats. I'm just going to mark every time a stress come up. Ta 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 ta. Okay, looks like here we cannot fit it every 4 beats. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We should have a stress here, but we don't have it. That means that this cycle is not of 4 units, but of 3 units. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if, for example, we start singing the song 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, it really doesn't match the psychological stress with the melody. But if we do it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, then the number 1 matches the stress. That means that this music can be represented by, say, 3 units. I choose as a unit, this is the most appropriate unit to choose most of the time, the quarter notes. I choose 3 quarter notes to represent the pulse of this melody. So we need to write the time signature for this. We need to say, okay, this number here tells me how many, 1, 2, 3. And this tells me what, how many what, quarter notes. Quarter notes are represented by number 4. Sometimes this music with a pulse of 3 goes actually a bit faster than that, and goes ta 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 ta. In that case, I will say that we can replace these quarter notes by 8 notes. We're just going to erase that because we don't need it at the moment. And we can say that the pulse of the song can be represented by 3 8 notes. Ta 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 ta. Okay, so if we have this, we're going to try to work out the time signature for this. We always say how many, 1, 2, 3. The top is how many, 3. How many what? 8 notes. These are not quarter notes, so we're just going to use, and that is how we configure the 3 by 8. Remember, this is a pulse. This is not the rhythm of a melody. This is a pulse. The pulse is always the same. I'm not representing the rhythm. The rhythm can many times match the pulse. Like for example, ta 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 ta, but not all the time, because ta 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 ta. The sound extends the beat, and it's not following the pulse all the time. The same happens here. This is just to represent the pulse of it. So we have a 3 by 8. Sometimes, in a very funny way, we have that these 3 by 8s are repeated in a very funny way. Suppose this is a pulse of a 3 by 8, ta ta ta, and we should have the bars. This represents, as I say, once again, we are representing the pulse, we are not representing the rhythm. Ta 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 ta. Okay, but sometimes happens that we have, for example, that this one has a stress. And this one also have a stress, but that stress is a bit smaller. So it's going to be ta 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 ta. How can we represent that? I think a 3 by 8 is not good enough to represent this. We need something that explains that this, every other bar, the stress is going to be stronger than the other one. So, if we can erase the bar here, we could replace that number 3, because now, instead of having 3 in the bar, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we replace that by a 6. And we have here a compound time signature, a 6 by 8. A 6 by 8, that is actually 2 groups of 3 notes. We're talking, once again, we're talking about the pulse. We can do rhythms out of this. For example, if we need to represent this 3 here, we could write this. We need to say, put these 2 together, we have to go this way and leave this one like this. So this would be a rhythm, but we are here representing the pulse of a 6 by 8. There are cases in which this group of 3 that we just saw we have that this big stress here appears, and then we have a small stress, and instead of having a big stress again, we have a small stress again. Gosh. So we have this and another complication. In that case, we need to once again erase the bar there and say, well, if the stress is going to come after this, we're just going to put a line here, and we're going to have, instead of a 6 by 8, we're going to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 by 8. And thus, the pulse of this would be pa 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 pa. Okay, and there are even cases in which suppose we have that the big stress, the master stress, this one here, comes every 4 groups of 3. Pa 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 pa. Obviously, we just need to count 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah, 12. We have a 12 by 8.